RLUSD, Ripple's dollar stablecoin. For over a decade, Ripple has been on a mission to modernize cross-border payments and create the foundation for the Internet of Value. At the center of that mission is XRP, the digital asset designed to bridge currencies and move value instantly across the globe. But in 2025, Ripple introduced a new piece of the puzzle, one that could finally connect traditional finance, stablecoins, and XRP into a single, unstoppable system. That piece is RLUSD, Ripple's dollar stablecoin. Stablecoins are nothing new. Tether's USDT and Circle's USDC have dominated the market, becoming the on-ramps and liquidity sources for crypto. But they were built outside of the ISO 2022 framework. Outside of Ripple's enterprise-first vision, they were designed for traders, not institutions. Ripple saw the gap, and RLUSD was the answer. Announced as a fully regulated enterprise-grade stablecoin, RLUSD is Ripple's bridge between banks, businesses, and the blockchain ecosystem. Backed one-to-one by US dollar reserves, audited and built for compliance, RLUSD is more than another stablecoin. It is a stable settlement asset designed to flow seamlessly with XRP and RippleNet. Where USDT thrives in offshore markets and USDC has gained traction in DeFi, RLUSD positions itself at the intersection of regulation and utility. Ripple's relationships with banks, payment providers, and institutions give RLUSD an entry point no other stablecoin has. And unlike many competitors, RLUSD isn't trying to replace XRP. It complements it. Think of XRP as the bridge asset, the global neutral currency for settlement, and RLUSD as the liquidity fuel. Together, they create a system where stablecoins and XRP work hand in hand. RLUSD provides dollar stability, while XRP provides interoperability across currencies. In practice, this could mean an Indian bank settling payments with an African fintech using XRP as the bridge, while RLUSD provides the liquidity rails denominated in dollars. The timing of RLUSD is no accident. The world is moving toward tokenization, with trillions in assets, from real estate to treasuries, set to be digitized. Stablecoins are the first layer of that future. By launching RLUSD, Ripple ensures that XRP is at the center of tokenized finance, not pushed to the sidelines. Yet questions remain. Can Ripple compete with the massive lead of USDT and USDC? Will regulators treat RLUSD differently because of Ripple's history with the SEC? And perhaps most importantly, will RLUSD accelerate XRP's role as the neutral bridge or risk overshadowing it? This is the story of RLUSD, a stablecoin built for institutions tied to Ripple's vision and designed to bring the dollar into the Internet of Value. The next chapter explores the origins of RLUSD, why Ripple chose to enter the stablecoin race, and how its creation ties back to the broader mission that began with XRP. Part 1. The birth of RLUSD. The story of RLUSD begins not in 2025, but in the years leading up to it. During Ripple's long battle with regulators, the evolving stablecoin market, and the growing pressure for enterprises to adopt blockchain without volatility risk. For most of the 2010s, Ripple insisted that XRP itself was enough. It was fast, liquid, and perfectly designed as a bridge asset. But as stablecoins like USDT and USDC rose in dominance, Ripple's leadership faced a dilemma. On one hand, XRP could settle cross-border transactions better than any stablecoin. On the other, banks and institutions weren't ready to fully embrace a digital asset whose price moved up and down with the market. Stablecoins solved that problem. Pegged to the dollar, they offered stability while still leveraging blockchain rails. By 2021, Circle's USDC was becoming the default on-ramps for DeFi, while Tether's USDT controlled offshore liquidity pools. Yet both had weaknesses: Tether's opaque reserves and regulatory skepticism, Circle's struggles with scaling and government scrutiny. Ripple saw an opening, one that aligned perfectly with its compliance-first approach. The timing was critical. The SEC lawsuit against Ripple, filed in December 2020, cast a shadow over XRP's future. But as the case dragged on, it became clear that Ripple would survive. In fact, by 2023, rulings began to favor Ripple, giving the company confidence to expand. It was during this period of renewed clarity that Ripple executives began discussing what would become RLUSD. The logic was simple. Institutions needed a regulated, transparent, enterprise-grade stablecoin. Ripple already had the relationships with banks, central banks, and payment providers through RippleNet. By adding a dollar-backed stablecoin to the mix, Ripple could create a dual-asset strategy. XRP as the neutral bridge for interoperability. RLUSD as the stable settlement asset that institutions could hold without volatility risk. It wasn't about replacing XRP, it was about completing the picture. Internally, Ripple debated whether issuing a stablecoin might undermine XRP. If RLUSD became the preferred choice for institutions, would they still need XRP? But the counter-argument was stronger. By pairing XRP and RLUSD, Ripple could offer a 1-2 punch. XRP would bridge any currency into any other, while RLUSD would provide deep dollar liquidity and compliance reassurance. Instead of competing, they would complement. By late 2024, with Ripple's regulatory battles behind it, the company announced its stablecoin project to the world. The branding was deliberate, RLUSD. The RL prefix tied it directly to Ripple's brand, while signaling trust, compliance, and enterprise-grade stability. Ripple promised audits, 1.1 reserves, and alignment with regulators, all the things competitors often failed to deliver. The announcement was more than a product launch. It was a statement of intent. Ripple wasn't just the company behind XRP anymore. It was building a multi-asset infrastructure for the Internet of Value. The next chapter explores the technology and mechanics of RLUSD, how it works, how it integrates with RippleNet and XRP, and why its design is different from the stablecoins that came before. Part 2. The technology of RLUSD is not just another stablecoin. From its launch, Ripple emphasized that its design would be enterprise-grade, transparent, and deeply integrated into Ripple's ecosystem. To understand why it matters, it helps to look at how stablecoins function and how RLUSD distinguishes itself. At its core, a stablecoin is a tokenized IOU. Each coin represents a claim on a dollar, euro, or other reserve asset held in custody. The biggest stablecoins, Tether's USDT and Circle's USDC, rely on this simple promise. But in practice, questions about transparency, audits, and collateralization have dogged them for years. Ripple designed RLUSD to eliminate those concerns. Every token issued is backed 1.1 by US dollar reserves, held in regulated US financial institutions. Monthly attestations and regular audits provide the kind of visibility institutions demand. This compliance-first model mirrors Ripple's broader strategy to build solutions that banks, governments, and enterprises can adopt without hesitation. But RLUSD isn't just about backing, it's about integration. Unlike other stablecoins that live primarily on Ethereum or Solana, RLUSD was designed from the ground up to work seamlessly with RippleNet, on-demand liquidity, ODL, and the XRP ledger. Here's how the mechanics work. Issuance and redemption. RLUSD tokens can be minted and redeemed directly through Ripple's network. Institutions can deposit dollars and receive RLUSD, or redeem RLUSD for dollars with guaranteed liquidity. This makes RLUSD function more like an extension of traditional banking rails than a DeFi experiment. Integration with XRP. The real innovation lies in how RLUSD interacts with XRP. In cross-border payments, XRP acts as the bridge currency, instantly converting one fiat to another. RLUSD, meanwhile, acts as liquidity fuel. For example, a transaction moving from Indian rupees to Brazilian reals could be routed through RLUSD and XRP together. RLUSD providing dollar stability, XRP providing interoperability. The pairing allows Ripple to serve both institutions that want price stability and those seeking global reach. Tokenization layer. RLUSD is also positioned as a foundation for tokenization. As real-world assets like real estate, stocks, and treasuries are brought on-chain, RLUSD provides a dollar-denominated stable unit of account. Tokenized assets priced in RLUSD can settle seamlessly into RippleNet, with XRP bridging between currencies when needed. This gives RLUSD utility beyond payments, extending into capital markets and DeFi. Compliance features. Unlike many stablecoins, RLUSD includes built-in compliance hooks. Ripple can integrate with AML KYC systems, blacklist tokens linked to illicit activity, and work directly with regulators. While some in crypto may dislike this level of oversight, for enterprises and banks it is a prerequisite. RLUSD isn't chasing DeFi degen users, it's built for institutions. Multi-chain vision. While initially native to the XRP ledger, RLUSD was also designed with multi-chain interoperability in mind. Wrapped versions on Ethereum and other networks expand its reach, but always with Ripple's compliance-first branding attached. This allows RLUSD to move into DeFi and capital markets without losing its enterprise positioning. By combining transparency, integration, and utility, RLUSD carves out a niche that competitors struggle to reach. Tether dominates offshore. USDC thrives in DeFi. But RLUSD positions itself as the regulated, bank-ready stablecoin for the Internet of Value. The technology behind RLUSD isn't just about issuing a token. It's about building an infrastructure layer where XRP and stablecoins work hand in hand. Ripple designed it to complement XRP, not compete with it. And in doing so, they may have built the missing piece that finally brings institutions into blockchain at scale. The next chapter explores adoption and impact, how institutions, enterprises, and payment providers are responding to RLUSD, and what its rollout means for the broader crypto and financial ecosystem. Part 3. Adoption and impact of RLUSD. When Ripple announced RLUSD, critics dismissed it as too late. Tether and Circle already commanded billions in circulation and near total dominance of stablecoin liquidity. But adoption is not just about being first, it's about being trusted. Ripple's bet was that RLUSD could win where others fell short, in institutional finance, regulatory clarity, and integration with global payment systems. The first wave of adoption came directly from RippleNet partners. Banks and payment providers already using Ripple's on-demand liquidity services quickly realized RLUSD could lower friction. Instead of relying on third-party stablecoins, they could settle directly in a Ripple-issued asset, fully backed, transparent, and regulator-friendly. For institutions worried about Tether's opaque reserves or USDC's regulatory hurdles, RLUSD was the safer choice. Early pilots included cross-border corridors in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where dollar liquidity is both scarce and in demand. By leveraging RLUSD alongside XRP, payment providers could offer faster settlement with stable value. For example, a remittance company in Nigeria could receive RLUSD instantly, redeem it for local currency, or hold it as dollar exposure. This gave Ripple's partners a competitive edge: speed, stability, and compliance in one package. Beyond payments, enterprises exploring tokenization became early adopters. As companies experimented with tokenized treasuries, real estate, and commodities, they needed a stable, regulated dollar unit of account. RLUSD provided exactly that. Projects priced assets in RLUSD, confident that it would maintain peg, pass audits, and integrate with Ripple's liquidity tools. In tokenized capital markets, trust is everything, and Ripple's brand gave RLUSD legitimacy. Adoption also came through crypto exchanges. While RLUSD wasn't designed to compete directly in the retail trading space, listings on major platforms gave it visibility. Traders quickly discovered that RLUSD carried lower risk of regulatory delisting than USDT or algorithmic alternatives. For US-based exchanges in particular, RLUSD became a natural fit, giving them a compliant stablecoin option. Perhaps the most significant impact was psychological. RLUSD wasn't just another token, and it was a signal. Ripple had survived regulatory battles, built relationships with institutions, and now launched its own stablecoin. This positioned Ripple not as a single-asset company tied to XRP, but as a multi-asset infrastructure provider for the Internet of Value. Institutions watching from the sidelines took notice. Of course, challenges remained. Critics argued that Ripple was spreading itself thin, and that XRP risked being overshadowed by RLUSD. Would banks prefer to hold RLUSD instead of bridging with XRP? Would traders flock to RLUSD simply because it was stable, leaving XRP's price dynamics sidelined? Ripple countered by emphasizing the complementary nature of the two assets. XRP wasn't going away. It was the bridge that made RLUSD truly global. Still, adoption was never meant to be overnight. Ripple built RLUSD for the long game. By embedding it in RippleNet, integrating it with ODL, and using it as the foundation for tokenized finance, Ripple ensured RLUSD was more than just a trading coin. It was infrastructure. The impact rippled beyond Ripple itself. Competing stablecoins were forced to raise their transparency standards. Regulators pointed to RLUSD as a model for compliance, and institutions hesitant to touch stablecoins began testing the waters. knowing Ripple's name carried weight. The adoption of RLUSD was not about beating Tether or Circle at their own game. It was about creating a lane that only Ripple could fill. The regulated, institution-ready stablecoin that worked in harmony with XRP. The next chapter explores the risks and challenges ahead. Competition, regulation, and the delicate balance between XRP and RLUSD. Part 4. Risks and challenges of RLUSD. For all its promise, RLUSD faces serious challenges. The stablecoin market may be booming, but it's also one of the most competitive and politically sensitive sectors in crypto. Ripple's entry is bold, but success is far from guaranteed. The first challenge is competition. Tether USDT and Circle's USDC dominate global liquidity. Together they account for hundreds of billions in circulation, with entrenched network effects. Exchanges, DeFi protocols, and traders default to them because they are liquid and familiar. Convincing these players to pivot to RLUSD is a massive uphill battle. Ripple may not need to dethrone them, but carving out its niche requires persistence, incentives, and years of trust building. The second challenge is regulation. Ironically, Ripple's compliance-first model, its greatest selling point, could also become its Achilles heel. By aligning so closely with regulators, RLUSD may face slower rollout, stricter controls, and less flexibility compared to its rivals. While Tether thrives in offshore markets and USDC expands through fintech integrations, RLUSD could find itself boxed into the slow-moving world of banking. Worse, if US regulators change stance or introduce harsher rules on stablecoins, RLUSD might suffer from its own transparency. A third risk is the XRP dynamic. For years, XRP has been Ripple's flagship, the bridge asset powering cross-border settlement. Introducing RLUSD creates an inevitable tension. If institutions prefer holding RLUSD because it's stable, will XRP be sidelined? Critics argue that banks might just use RLUSD for everything, ignoring XRP entirely. Ripple's counter is that XRP and RLUSD are complementary. RLUSD provides liquidity in dollars, while XRP provides interoperability across currencies. But this balance is delicate. If adoption tilts too far toward RLUSD, XRP's narrative could weaken. Then there are market perceptions. Stablecoins are under constant scrutiny, from questions about reserves to fears of depegging. Any misstep, audit failure, or controversy could damage RLUSD's credibility instantly. And because it carries Ripple's name, a stumble for RLUSD would reflect on the company's broader mission. This risk is magnified by Ripple's history of being targeted by regulators. Even though Ripple survived the SEC case, new battles could emerge. Technology poses risks too. Stablecoins may seem simple, but their stability depends on flawless issuance, redemption, and liquidity mechanisms. If RLUSD faces delays in redemption, liquidity crunches, or integration bugs, confidence could evaporate. Ripple must ensure bulletproof operations across RippleNet, XRPL, and any chains where RLUSD expands. Finally, there's the macro environment. The rise of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, could reshape the stablecoin market entirely. If the US or other major economies launch their own digital dollars, the role of private stablecoins may diminish. RLUSD could find itself squeezed between CBDCs on one side and entrenched stablecoins on the other. Yet every risk carries an opportunity. Competition forces Ripple to innovate. Regulation gives RLUSD legitimacy. The XRP tension, if managed well, can highlight the synergy of a dual asset strategy. And even CBDCs might complement RLUSD, with Ripple positioning itself as the bridge between public and private money. The challenges are real, but so is the potential. RLUSD is not a speculative meme coin chasing hype. It is a carefully engineered instrument built for institutions. Success will depend not just on technology, but on Ripple's ability to navigate politics, perception, and the delicate balance between stability and growth. The final chapter explores the future of RLUSD, the scenarios where it thrives, the risks that could hold it back, and its speculative role in XRP's journey toward becoming the backbone of global finance. Part 5. The future of RLUSD. The launch of RLUSD marks a turning point not just for Ripple but for the entire stablecoin sector. For the first time, a company with Ripple's institutional reach, regulatory experience, and global partnerships is stepping into the stablecoin arena. The question is not simply whether RLUSD will succeed, but what its success would mean for XRP, RippleNet, and the Internet of Value. The most optimistic future sees RLUSD becoming a core liquidity instrument for banks, payment providers, and enterprises worldwide. As tokenization expands, from treasuries to real estate, from supply chains to carbon markets, RLUSD could emerge as the default US dollar stablecoin for regulated finance. Its compliance-first design and Ripple branding give it a trust factor competitors lack. In this scenario, RLUSD becomes the digital dollar of choice for private markets, working in tandem with XRP as the bridge asset that connects currencies and networks. Ripple's dual asset strategy would thrive in this future. Imagine a world where a European company pays an African supplier. The transaction flows through RippleNet, XRP handles the interoperability, and RLUSD provides dollar-denominated liquidity. Together they form a seamless pair, the bridge and the fuel. This would cement Ripple's role not just as an XRP company, but as the backbone of the Internet of Value. Another future sees RLUSD carving out a narrower role. Instead of competing head-on with USDT and USDC in retail and DeFi, RLUSD could dominate RippleNet corridors, enterprise tokenization, and niche use cases where compliance is paramount. This smaller but still powerful future positions RLUSD as the institutional layer of the stablecoin market, less visible than Tether, but deeply embedded where the real money moves. But darker scenarios exist. RLUSD could struggle against incumbents with liquidity too shallow to compete. Institutions might view it as redundant, preferring to hold dollars directly or adopt future CBDCs. Regulators could shift stance, making Ripple's compliance-first strategy a burden rather than an advantage. In this world, RLUSD becomes a niche token, overshadowed by XRP's continued relevance as a neutral bridge. The most fascinating question is how RLUSD will reshape XRP's narrative. If RLUSD thrives, it could amplify XRP's utility by expanding Ripple's reach into new markets. But if RLUSD grows too dominant, it risks blurring XRP's role. Ripple must balance the two, ensuring that XRP remains the bridge asset while RLUSD serves as the liquidity layer. Done right, this balance could elevate both, creating a system greater than the sum of its parts. Speculatively, RLUSD could also play a role in CBDC integration. As central banks experiment with digital currencies, Ripple could position RLUSD as the private sector complement, interoperable, liquid, and globally available. Imagine a world where CBDCs interact with XRP as the bridge, while RLUSD provides dollar liquidity in global corridors. This alignment would place Ripple at the center of the coming digital currency era. Ultimately, the future of RLUSD depends on one thing: trust. Ripple must prove to regulators, institutions, and the market that RLUSD is safe, liquid, and reliable. If it succeeds, RLUSD won't just be another stablecoin. It will be the institutional stablecoin, the missing link between the traditional financial system and the blockchain future. In that future, XRP remains the heart. RLUSD is the lungs, breathing liquidity into the system. Together, they could finally make Ripple's vision of the Internet of Value a reality. The canary networks test, the bridges connect. The stablecoins provide fuel, and at the center of it all sits Ripple. Not just a company, but the architect of a financial system built for the digital age. RLUSD, Ripple's dollar. Stablecoins were meant to be simple. Digital dollars for a digital age. But Ripple's RLUSD is more than that. It's a statement of intent that the Internet of Value will not be left to offshore tokens, shadow banking, or speculation. It will be built on compliance, trust, and interoperability. RLUSD doesn't replace XRP, it completes it. Together they form Ripple's dual asset strategy. XRP as the bridge, RLUSD as the liquidity. One without the other is incomplete. Together they may reshape the flow of money across the world, but the questions remain. Can RLUSD carve its place among giants like USDT and USDC? Will institutions embrace it? Or will it remain a niche tool? And most of all, will it accelerate XRP's rise or risk overshadowing it? Here at LTL Productions, we tell the untold stories of crypto. Not the hype, but the hidden engines driving the future of finance. Subscribe to LTL Productions. Share this video with someone who still thinks stablecoins are all the same. And stay with us as we continue uncovering the projects, people, and protocols building the new financial system. This is LTL Productions and this is RLUSD, Ripple's dollar stablecoin.